What's good, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? I am going to be your host for this evening for this lovely conversation about first-time voting experience and first-time voters. My name is Isaac. I am the National Digital Director for Woke Vote. And right now, we are engaging upon a campaign to try to get as many people out to the polls as possible. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk to some people about their experiences with voting for the first time. For some of the guests that are going to be coming on tonight, this will literally be their first time casting ballots in a general election. So I just want to have conversations with them about those experiences, just about the process, and hopefully you guys get something from this conversation. Before we get too deep into the conversation, I want to make sure that everyone knows if you are unsure of where you can go to cast your ballot, where your polling location is, whether or not you are registered, if you are still in a place where registration is open. Most places registration is done. North Carolina, some places have some rules around where you can literally register and cast a ballot on the same day up until the day before the election. But anyway, you can get all of that information at the website that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. That is vote.wokevote.us. You can head over there and get any voting information that you need. Please take advantage of that. If you need rides to the polls, all of that, let's figure out how you're going to get out there casting those ballots. You can also make commitments to vote. We want everyone to make a commitment right now that you will be a part of this process and vote. It's super important for as many voices to be represented as possible. So you have that opportunity right now to make your commitment, go out there and get out to the polls. All right. So we didn't come here to hear me talk, though. We came here to hear these gentlemen talk about their experiences. If you are watching right now as well, please share the live and make sure somebody else gets an opportunity to hear this information that we're putting out here. Again, this isn't to try to beat anybody over the head about why, you know, voting is necessarily important. We just want to share experiences and really talk candidly to people about their experiences with voting. So without further ado, I want to start with bringing up a gentleman from my hometown, from Birmingham, Alabama. He is the brother Blue. Let's bring him out here. Blue is going to be joining us. Blue, as I understand it, how you doing tonight, sir? First and foremost, before we get too much into your story, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Pretty good. How about yourself?
You know, I can't complain. It's been a long day, but you know, the same 24 hours every day. I don't know why people say it's a long day. I understand what the sentiment is, though. But yeah, it's pretty good. Um, I appreciate you taking a little time to talk with us tonight, though, and share your experiences. I know you've been very open about talking about just this being really an exciting time for you, being having the opportunity to cast your ballot for the first time in a general election. So tell the people a little bit about yourself and your story around this first time experience.
Basically, when I was young, I was what some might call a troublemaker, got in a lot of little trouble. And I thought I had lost my voting rights because some of the trouble that I've been in. That was over 20 years ago. I'm 42 now.
Mm-hmm.
We were on the show in Birmingham, Vital Show, and a guy came in as a guest and was just raising awareness about people having the right to vote. That if your felony wasn't a crime of moral turpitude, then you had, the right to vote. And I was just, reading the literature, and I was just looking. I was like, well, man, I don't see what I did on here.
Hmm.
Said, well, you probably can vote. And so that night when I got home, I I went and looked at the site that you can go to check, and I don't know how I was registered. Somebody might have registered. I think what I did, I probably registered to vote, but then tell them I couldn't vote out of maybe embarrassment or
Right.
something. But it was painful because I missed out on the opportunity to vote for our first black president. And I've just never been able to vote. I've had a voice, but not when it comes to voting.
Mm-hmm.
And so March was the first time I ever like technically voted, when I voted in the preliminary. So on November 3rd, I was going to do the mail-in ballot, but I want to embrace the whole ambiance of standing in line on that day, taking a picture with my "I voted" sticker,
Yeah.
not being embarrassed anymore because I don't have the right to vote. I thought I didn't have the right to vote. So
That's very dope, man. Very dope. So yeah, definitely excited to have you here on the broadcast with us tonight, just sharing your experiences around that. I think one of the interesting things as we bring our next guest out here, I want to give him some time. So I'm gonna bring up here as well the brother Val. Val is from Philly, joining us.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
you
guys
taking
know.
the time to talk with us today.
Of course.
And I think one of the interesting things, the reasons why I thought this conversation for me was going to be interesting, is just kind of the different perspectives that we hear. So I just want to, Val, let you take a minute to kind of talk about yourself and your voting experience to this point. So I'm gonna give the floor to you.
Yeah, once again, appreciate you guys for having me. So for me, one of the things, when Obama first got elected, it was like 2008, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I was, I was still in high school, so I couldn't vote at all. So my freshman year of college was 2012, and that's when Obama's second term for the election and things like that. And at that point, I couldn't vote either because at the time I was 17, and as we all know, you have to be 18 to vote. So by the time it came around again for the new election, which was when this was Trump versus Hillary, I basically told myself, man, I don't care about none of this. I don't care like who like any of these people are. I don't see any similarities in which I would want to vote for them. So I didn't vote. I just took it as like, okay, it is what it is. But what kind of like changed my perspective as time went on was that I had a very candid conversation with one of my best friends who's from Nigeria, and she's an immigrant, so she can't vote at all. Period. And coming from a place of Nigeria where it's like their voices aren't heard, or the democracy is not as strong as it is right now. We all see what's going on in Nigeria also. So that conversation we had, it was I kind of stood on my stance where I was like, I don't care about all of this. Like me not voting is not the reason why Trump won and just things like that. And just if I thought like that, how many other people thought like that too? And we had almost like 4 million people who didn't vote at all. So that was kind of my perspective going into it. So I didn't really think anything of it. But after that conversation with my best friend, it changed my perspective and just realized like it's my civic duty. Like this is an opportunity for me to make change. So you can't always just talk about it. You have to be about it. So I do regret not voting and not taking it seriously because we see where we're at today. But just I guess I was a person where I had the opportunity to vote, but I didn't, and that's just as right. Why we're saying that if you don't vote, you're voting for Trump at the same time. So it's still it's a scary thought moving forward. Though.
Yeah. So one of the things I think that, and again, this is the reason why this was interesting to me, is you said that in 2016 you basically were like, whatever, right? Like
Yeah,
I don't care nothing about these people. Don't represent me. They don't speak for me. Da da da. Um, and so you just ignored it completely.
yeah,
But now you feel, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, and then like I feel like that's like almost the exact opposite of our brother Blue here, who was like he wanted to be out there and get
yeah,
into it, but he couldn't, right? Like, and so or he didn't think that he could, right? And so I think that's just an interesting thing. You're a younger man, so you still have, hopefully, God willing, a lot of voting years ahead of you to be
yeah.
able to speak to other people who could potentially have that same mindset. So outside of you know whatever political leanings you have for the current administration, what would you say to someone who might be in your shoes right now, who maybe they just turned 18 and they're super disengaged with the process right now? What would you say to them to kind of talk them out of that space? Because there's a lot of people who are in that space right now. They're just like, you know what, I'm just not going to vote because
Yeah.
it don't matter, right? So, like, what would you say to those people?
I think one of the biggest things that I would tell them is that ultimately at the end of the day, that your vote really does matter. Like you can think about the presidency and all that stuff, but yes, that's only one part of voting. Like you still have to vote for your congressman, your congresswoman, because these are people that directly affect your everyday lives. Like these are people that, when laws are made in your county, in your state, whatever it may be, like this is what's going to affect you. Like, you're going to have to go out one day. Like even seeing the ballot, there was one of the laws talking about legalizing marijuana and things like that, and then state of New Jersey or Pennsylvania. That's something that's going to affect a lot of black men because as we know today, there's a lot of black men who are incarcerated because of like the law saying that just the ounces of marijuana and things like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we voted the right people in at the time where like they were making the right laws. You know, we won't see these type of things today. So for me, that's something I would definitely have to tell like the younger generation, like, hey, like don't take it lightly. Like this is your future that you're voting for, or because like the presidency is one thing, but ultimately at the end of the day, like you still have your congresswomen, your councilmen, and things like that. They're ultimately like dictating how your lives is going to be lived.
Right. I think that's a big thing. And that's the conversation that I try to have with people is
Yeah.
it's not just about the president, right? So I get it. You don't feel like the president impacts your life and, black people been going through the same stuff. Don't matter who's in the office. Well, I'd argue that there's way more at stake than just that one thing. But I want to kick it over to you, Blue, coming from the opposite perspective. When you were not able to vote, were you making appeals to people to say, yo, like, I can't do this. I need you to do this for me. Right. Was that like a thing that you did?
Well, I was embarrassed, honestly, about
Mm,
not being able to vote. So that was never an angle. But I always argue. I grew up in politics. My grandma was in politics. She used to get the guys in the neighborhood to go around to pass out the sample ballots. She used to be a poll watcher. So I was a grandmama's boy. So I followed around. And so I knew all about voting. Um, and so a lot of the years I really didn't care because I was just kind of in the streets and was like, man, I don't care. It doesn't matter who. But as
mm-hmm.
the older I got, the more I realized the impact of not voting or being able to vote had on me. That's when I started just, it started hurting like, man, I can't even vote, And so I would just always tell other people in the barbershop, we would have arguments. I worked for a city council here in the city. And so, I've just been waiting to vote. And I'm excited about voting in the presidential election, but I'm more excited about the opportunity to be able to vote the next time the local elections
Mm-hmm.
come around, because those are the ones that literally directly affect me.
Right.
And so, I even want to run for one of these days, in my area. So, I'm ready, man. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna vote. I want to
You
go
got,
with my
I say
black.
you got your voting day outfit. You're trying to put it together in your head.
I'm trying to see, do I want to wear my Black Lives Matter shirt? I got a Black Lives Matter flag that just came in the mail. So I'm like, but I don't want any confusion to where, because I stay in the area that's it might be considered Trumpville.
Right.
I have zero tolerance for drama, so I don't want any drama and not be able to vote.
Right.
So I think I might just keep it, simple.
Keep it low key, but just roll up in there, doing what you got to do. Listen, hey, look, what the objective is to go in there and cast the ballot, right? And so,
Right.
definitely, I'm excited for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when I heard about the situation of like, man, thinking that you did not have this opportunity, but then like coming to the realization that you did, I was like, man, that's a really just like do you even know how to in words encapsulate like that feeling of that realization of like, whoa, wait, whoa, like I could do this, like, and then like
It was late because this was when the show was coming on from 9 to 10.
mm,
So I got home, it was like 11, and everybody was asleep. I felt like crying, but I couldn't cry. But I was just, like hurt, because I missed out on stuff. Like I can never just sit around and be like, I voted for the first black president. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like I'll never be able to say that. And I feel like if I had voted, I probably would have went to the inauguration, the swearing or something, just to embrace it. So now it's different. I'm hoping that I'll be the first. I don't know if you talk about which side, but I hope I'll be part of the people who removed the worst president in history. So in the first possibility of a female black woman
that's dope.
as president, because I
Yeah.
don't, But it was hurtful. Like it was extremely hurtful. It was bittersweet. I'll never miss another election as long as I live.
So yeah, and that's that. Listen, that's a powerful statement in and of itself. So talk to me about the information that you got, because maybe somebody is watching right now or watching the replay later, and they need to know whether or not whatever they've done in their past, whether it prohibits them from being able to vote. They might be a little late as far as registration is concerned, or maybe they did like you, where they registered and they was just like whatever, right? Like, so where did you have to go to figure that out?
Well, first I went. Different states have different rules.
Mm-hmm.
In Alabama, it is not. You have with certain crimes you have to apply to get your rights back. In
Right.
other states, they automatically come back or are reinstated after so many years. But of course, is no real literature to tell you how to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
learned it. I can't remember the website. I just actually went and checked my voting status first.
Mm.
And it said, you're a registered vote at Brown Elementary. And I was like, whoa. You know, it was right around the corner from where I used to live. And I was like, whoa, I haven't lived there for like 5 years. And it said I was registered to vote in 2008. And so, you know, I missed 12 years
Mm.
of, you know, not voting in the local and the national. And so after that, when I found that out, I mean, I went and basically registered and changed my address to where I can get, you know, for my new polling place. And they sent it to me in the mail. And so I would just recommend to Google or try and search what are your state laws as far as felons who vote or previous felons and which felons. You know, I don't have a violent crime. Mine doesn't even involve people.
Mm.
It's just, it's the weirdest thing in the world on how they do it in Alabama. But you know, we're a red southern state, so that's self-explanatory.
Right.
But I just encourage people, like, man, just know your status. Like,
Right.
it's searchable.
Right.
Every state.
Speaking of vote.us, I got to plug my stuff down here. You can
Right.
go and check your registration status right now on the website. So you can look up this website, you can select your state, and then you can put your information in. You can check what your registration status is, where your polling location. So please utilize that resource if you are at all unsure or you want to make sure that you are able to cast your ballot coming up here November 3rd, or if you want to early vote. Early voting is something I definitely recommend. But yeah, that's dope though.
And I
This
just, you know, I just heard like in Jefferson County, that's the county I live in, that one of the county commissioners actually went into the county jail, and like 200 some people in the county jail still had the right to vote and register to vote. And so it's like, it's this thing in America that feels like once you get in trouble, you got to read that scarlet letter forever.
Yeah.
hmm
But it's laws that are actually, of course, when if you got violent stuff, it's probably a lot harder. But for some of us that got in little troubles, just, you know, random small slap on the wrist, but not even a real class C, class D felony, um, you can get your status back way sooner than you think. And
Yeah.
so I think next go around, this one kind of caught me off guard, and I wanted to just enjoy it for myself. But I think the next go around, I'm gonna be more of an advocate for, you know, people who think that they don't have voting rights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's an important thing too. Like that's one of the things I wanted to bring out from your statement is talking about like the laws that surround people getting their right to vote and you know how we vote and just you know electoral college systems. All of those things are encapsulated by who you place in office, right? Like we think I think sometimes too narrowly about what our vote allows us to do. And then
Yeah.
we're super short sighted with the people who we back for whatever the office is. Like I was having a conversation online with a guy that felt as if this election was another opportunity for us to vote for the lesser of two evils, right? And he's like, why do we always have the lesser of two evils choices? And I had to explain to him. I was like, okay, well, so you know that there's a presidential election coming up 4 years after this one. You should be vetting candidates right now that you feel like should be. If you don't want to have a lesser of two evils for the next option,
Absolutely.
right now you need to be looking at, okay, I don't like either one of these options, and you know I don't want to vote in the Green Party, or I don't want to vote for the Libertarian third party. Great. All right, who do you want to vote for? What does your ideal candidate look like? Start looking for those people now, so that 4 years from now you can start making the push for where actually 2 years from now when people start making that push, you can get behind that candidate.
You need to have that black contract literally the day after they're sworn in. Here's our contract. Don't wait 2 years. Don't wait to the.
Ice Cube already gave it to him, right? No,
Well, but I
nah.
mean, he doing just. It's kind of like what you just said. We're waiting till it's clutch time now
Exactly.
to make negotiations. When right now it's like, okay, we beyond negotiations. We behind enemy lines. We in the red. We got to get out of here.
Right.
And see, I think the thing that people really don't realize, first of all, I remember when I was Valentine's age, you know, hell, I got here real fast, like real fast. Like,
Listen,
man, I can't
listen.
believe it. And if you think about it, in 3 election cycles, he'll be there.
Right.
So a lot of people not gonna really feel the bite that Trump and his administration has caused until maybe the next 4 years, because it might take them the next few years getting out of this slump that we are headed into. And so it's just like people, like he said earlier, it didn't matter to him, it didn't affect him then, but now, oh man,
Yes, agreed.
it is. And see, the thing is, uh, I I'm married to a doctor. We start our own practice. We're in a different tax bracket.
Right.
Trump's tax plan actually helped us not have to pay taxes for the past couple of years. We can easily say, shoot, we can pull a 50 and say, oh man, shoot, it's taxing, giving us a break. Democrats um, they tax the mess out of people in my tax bracket. But the way I look at it is that I got a lot of family members who don't go in that tax bracket, who will never get in that tax bracket. And it'll be just selfish and just, I mean, just extremely selfish for me to focus on me and not focus on the entire community. Because if the community not thriving, then we not thriving.
Absolutely.
So when you think about healthcare, like, can you imagine all these elderly people? It's like a genocide, systematic genocide. So, I'm like, we got a lot at stake. People need to vote. Like, if you're not woke by now, something wrong. You need to have.
It's definitely time to make sure that you have your eyes open and figure out like what the values are that you have and cast your ballot accordingly. I want to bring you back in here, Val. I want to talk about like people who are contemporary to you, right? People around your age. Um, do you see a lot of the same apathy that you used to have towards voting with people who are in your age range?
Actually, I think it's kind of like the opposite now, where people in my age range are like they're very, very involved in like voting and just who like just the political talk in general. Like I know even during the presidential debate, just scrolling through my timeline on Twitter, you see a lot more people than you would expect, especially people our age commenting like, "Hey, like I don't like this, I don't like that," like But it's not. Yes, it's like a lot of it sometimes does feel like it's a joke, but you can tell that people are taking this more seriously. I'm seeing a whole lot more. Of kind of what Blue said, a whole lot more stickers on people's chest saying I voted. Like I know for me, the first opportunity when I went back home, I saw like my ballot was in the mail, did that thing right then and there, didn't waste any time. And just going through Instagram, going through IG Live, you see it's not just me, it's a bunch of other people. Because at the end of the day, I feel like we're understanding the severity of what it means to vote. We're understanding like the importance of, not just voting, once again, like we talked about, not just in the presidential election, even when we're talking about the primaries and we're talking about like the voting situation, like I know my friends making sure that they're voting in these things, because we know at the end of the day, like this is what's going to determine, how our daily lives are. And I've like at the end of the day, I am always the advocate. I'm going to tell people like, hey, like you have to vote, because why? Like I was in your situation where it's like, hey, if it didn't affect me, it didn't matter. Like if I didn't see it physically, it really never made a difference to me. But now it's like I'm feeling it now. We're all feeling it. We're as a black community, we're feeling it. Where the president really doesn't. I hate to say it, but he doesn't care about black people. There's a whole lot of things going on, but yet we didn't really understand the gravity of which we were bringing into office by people like me who didn't vote the first time and just thinking of it as a joke. And one thing that I would kind of remind myself is that if I thought like that, imagine how many other people thought like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's once again just trying not to be selfish, trying not to just make it an I mentality, but understanding that it's a collective. So yeah.
And I think, and both of you just talked about the collective mentality that has to go around the idea of voting, right? Not
Yeah.
just the act of doing it, because that's a very personal choice, right? Like I am not, and we at Vote are not telling you who to vote for or how to vote. I'm just telling you to go and vote, right? So that's a very personal act. But the collective mentality of I'm casting this ballot, and this is something that we at Woke Vote we're about to start talking about a little bit more, for the people who aren't like you, Blue, who actually do not have the option, right? But if they had the option, they would definitely cast a ballot, right? We have the responsibility, and people don't like that term when you talk about voting. They don't like about responsibility or, whatever. But there's a responsibility, honestly, as a citizen who has the ability to cast their ballot, to be a voice for those that are voiceless, right? You don't have an option to go in there and cast that ballot. I need to cast this ballot for you, right? And even outside of the historical context, we're not even talking about for ancestors who were denied the right completely. I'm talking about today, people walking around on the streets right now who do not have the option, right? Or even for me having a son, my son is 4 years old. I have to vote thinking about him, right? Like it's a collective mindset that's necessary for me to be able to have this conversation, which is there are more people who are impacted by my decision than just me, even though it's just one ballot, right? And so, do we have the opportunity to do that in a collective way and think about that? I think you mentioned it, Blue, having the a general plan of what we need to do collectively and put pressure on political, like we need to start having those kinds of conversations together and figuring out what we want to do. So where do you feel like, let's fast forward November. I'll give everybody like 2 days, right? So November 5th, like we give you 2 days to recoup. November 5th, like what are we doing to try to kick off a new era of voter participation in the African American community?
So I believe in metaphors. So I counter to this like people trying to lose weight. They do all they got to do, lose the weight, but losing weight is not a spontaneous drop. It's a lifestyle change.
Mm.
And so I believe that in voting, it has to be part of our lifestyle, part of our culture, so that people can embrace it. One of the things that I am seeing is a lot of young people running for political positions because I mean, I don't know if it's popular, but a lot of people are having more interest in political positions. So I just think that instead of slacking down, it needs to be full throttle November 5th. I mean, is we cannot, no matter what the outcome is, we cannot think that it's a joke because in 2 years they're gonna have
The
the
midterm elections. That's exactly where I'm at with it. Yeah.
so it's like we see now if the Senate would have been a certain way, they would have impeached the president. We see now if the Senate would have been a certain way, they wouldn't be filling justices, or they would have filled justices when Obama was in office. So, it's kind of like the local government. People think the mayor has all the power, but the city councils control the pocketbook. They
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
vote on stuff. And so Congress and Senate, they control the national pocketbook. And so if we are looking for, and they're the ones who change laws. So we're looking for laws, and we're looking for criminal justice reform, prison reform, police reform, legalization of marijuana, whatever your choice is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. The president is the face piece. The president sets the tone for the country, but it's Congress and the Senate who are the playmakers, and
Right.
we see their power right now. So I mean, we got to make sure in 2 years we have this same energy and awareness of how important it is.
Yeah, I think that's the difficult thing is maintaining that energy between the major election cycles. The midterm elections are just as important, but I want to get your opinion on that, Val. What do you feel like needs to be happening again? November 5th, we're 2 days removed, and people have, the candidate that they cast their ballot for won, or the candidate they cast their ballot for did not win. So what are we doing to make sure we can keep that energy moving?
No, I agree with Blue. Because at the end of the day, we have to take the every other election seriously. Like we just can't wait till 4 years from now to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to start voting again. Now we're seeing all the vote now, this, that, and the third coming out. But you also have to understand, what am I setting up now? And one thing I feel like there's a misconception where you have to almost be a politician to understand politics. But a lot of times, like if you just do research, if you Google, you'll kind of understand like the platforms of what people are doing, how people are moving, and just just being more versed. So for me, one thing I've started doing, just even if it's just like an outfit, like I guess like the guidelines of what's liberal or what's conservative. No one is truly just liberal. No one is truly just conservative. We all kind of like share certain things. So just like being able to just take yourself out of okay, this person might not have exactly what I'm looking for, but what do they have that I can connect to and make sure that once again thinking as a whole, like that will benefit my people in general. Like that will benefit, like upbring my people. So for me, I feel like at the end of the day, it's about just not starting and looking for 4 years, but looking at the end of the day for 2 years and just making sure that we're together as a unit and voting for the community leaders and voting for the congressional leaders and voting for the House and making sure that we're So don't want to ramble, but I agree with you.
No. All good stuff, man. Definitely. Listen, that's what again I think the mindset has to be for us to make sure that we're in a good position. So you when was your first time voting, Val?
So my first time voting for the presidential election was actually like a couple weeks ago when I did my mail-in ballot. To be honest.
Okay, so you've already cast your mail-in ballot for president. So this,
mail-in ballot for
I thought when you said you got your ballot in the mail, I thought that's what you were meaning. You went ahead and filled that out.
Yeah, so I filled it out, dropped it off. So this is essentially my first time voting in a presidential election. But I voted in my county election back in Jersey. So I'm registered to vote in New Jersey. So I always just drive back and just get to handle that. So I voted in like the county elections and things like that, and even the primaries too, for the New Jersey primaries. But this is my first actual presidential election I'm going to be voting at. So.
Very dope, very dope. And Blue, you said you're gonna wait. You want to get the election day experience. You want to walk up there, be in the line. You got a mask. You know what I'm saying. You got your voting day mask. What you doing?
I'm gonna be masked up.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of. I'm not gonna say I'm willing to take the risk just to vote, but I mean it'll take a whole lot to deter me from going out that day. I mean, even if it rained, I got my rain suit. I'm voting November 3rd.
Yeah. So and that's an important thing too. Like we talk a lot about telling people they need to go and vote. But like there's a portion of the whole conversation that needs to happen around like what's your plan to cast that ballot? Like how do you intend to do that? Like you all sound like you're coming in with a plan. Val knew I'm casting this absentee ballot. Blue was like, nah, listen, I got my outfit ready. I got my contingency set up here. Like if it's raining, I know what I'm gonna put up. Like that's the kind of thinking people need to like when you are determined to do a thing, you are gonna remove the excuses that impede you from doing that thing. But still there's an important part to this. Actually, my man Chris just hopped in here on the back end. I'm gonna see if we can get him in on this conversation real quick. Dr. Fluent, what's good, brother?
Yo, what's up, brother, man? I'm so sorry for my tardiness, man.
It happens.
I just moved in a new spot downtown, so I'm still getting acclimated. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, man, we were just talking about like the voting experience for the first time. Fluent and I've been talking a little bit behind the scenes just about like this is going to be again your first time ever voting, right? Like you just got registered recently. Like so I just want to give the same space I gave everybody else to just kind of talk about like the experience. Like what was the catalyst to make you say, you know what, I've been playing around with this too long, let me go ahead and register. So encapsulating into that, like when were you first eligible to vote? What election was it?
I remember, man, Obama. That's the one that I like vividly remember. I was at Jackson State, man. All the students on campus was like rallying, like they was really pushing voting, It was a college campus, but I think for me, because I moved out of the house as soon as I graduated high school and went off on my own, I was working 2 and 3 jobs at Jackson State, full-time student, Mr. NABJ, and just doing a lot, man. And I didn't think that, that election really was going to affect me. Now, here I am. That was what, 2011, when was it?
2012.
So fast forward.
The second time, 2012.
2012. Yeah, let's take your time. So here we are now. Fast forward 8 years later. Now having a master's, being in my career, living on my own now. I'm scared as hell, and I think it's super important that if I never used my voice before, and being a radio personality, being a public figure, man, like I really got a duty. I felt like this election, especially with the candidates that we have, man, it's super important for people like me who are out in the open, who are out in the public and look like this, and we're kind of urban. And I'm in these high places, but I haven't done what I'm supposed to do. I've never voted before. This is going to be my first time. So that goes to show you, even those people that people look up to sometimes don't always tap in like we need to. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about this year because I'm really going to do what I should have been doing all along. So
Yeah. So what was the thing? What was the light bulb? What made you say, you know what, this is gonna be the one? Like,
just what
why this one?
just where I am,
Yeah.
just
Just where
where I
you are
am.
in life.
I'm not so moved. I'm not so yeah. Like I'm not so I'm not moved by Trump. We've had him for 4 years already. We know what type of president he will be. I think that's self-explanatory. However, the only way to fix that is to vote. So that's why I'm going to make sure I go vote this year, because it's the only way we're going to make a difference. And to be honest with you, all these stories about the polls being, like when you go vote and they, rigging the machines and all this kind of stuff, that type of stuff is out of our hands. But the only thing we really can't do is show up, go vote, and do, what I'm saying, what we're supposed to do. I think for me is being grown, bro. Like I'm scared. I'm terrified. We've had riots in Birmingham. We've had the KKK come out. We've had the Black Panthers out there across the street from each other. We've had people riot downtown. You know, to be honest, I'm scared as a young creative. I like if we don't get somebody else, or get a legitimate president, then what does that mean for the young creatives? Because our parents and everything, they're older. They've seen many elections, and these are still some of our first ones. So I'm 27. I still got my whole life ahead of me. So depending on who we elect this election period, bro, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna feel the cause of their destruction. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, I'm gonna have the impact because I'm so young. You know what I'm saying? I think that was the thing for me. It's an eye opener. Like I'm really terrified. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I'm terrified that if we don't start getting the right people in places, man, and we're pro our people, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that's the real thing. Like as you get older, you start to understand the gravity of moments a little bit better, because that's something that I've always voted just because that's what we did, right? Like I came up like when I was in high school. Part of the civics course in your senior year in high school was to register to vote. Like you got credit for that, right? Like you go register. That was part of. But I was only 17 when I graduated, so I couldn't do it,
I
right? And
can't
so I
hear
was just
you.
like, "You can't hear me," you said.
I know I can't hear nothing you saying, Isaac.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure. Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna drop you out and then bring you back into the stream. But like it was one of those things where when you got older and you started having the ability to do certain things, you're like, man, you understand it a little bit better. Like I said, it was always a thing where like I did it because I was supposed to, but I wasn't doing it with any understanding, right? And so as I started to understand what was going on, it became a bigger deal for me. And then I became this advocate. And then I started working campaigns. And now I'm out here doing this advocacy work with Vote Vote. Like as I got older, I started realizing there are more ways that I can contribute to this process than just casting my ballot. And that became an important thing to me to make sure that I was being a part of that entire process. So I think, like you were saying, Fluent, like you can, as you get older, you want to be able to be impactful in some sort of way, and voting is just one of those ways that you can start to have that impact. So I know, and what I was going to pivot to for you, Chris, is that you're going out there Saturday, right? Oh, he dropped out. His phone probably messing up on him. But I was going to say he's supposed to be going out there Saturday. Saturday. So for those that don't know, Alabama for the first time ever is allowing Saturday voting, right? Like we've never had voting on any day that wasn't a weekday in the state of Alabama before. But that's a thing again that's impacted by your vote, right? Like if you want to see things like that change, you put candidates in there that will do that sort of thing, and then you put pressure on those candidates to say we want to see the voting structure change in our state. For you said you vote in New Jersey, right, Val?
Yeah.
And New Jersey, what's the early voting process there?
Uh, I believe it was mail-in ballot, and they had different drop locations around. So once you finish your mail-in ballot, you literally go in and physically drop it off. Unfortunately, I didn't. I don't know about other people. I don't trust USPS. It's all the conspiracy that's going on right now. So I
Yeah,
rather I know with the county I'm in, they were very they're very adamant about making sure that we vote. So they had, at the police station, at the local elementary school, just making sure that you got your, once you got your mail-in ballot, you can literally go in and drop it in there. And there was a whole process of how even how the envelopes had to be signed and things like that. So they were very
yeah.
meticulous about how they did that, which I was very impressed about. So.
Yeah, so in-person absentee voting is a thing here as well. That is actually, I hate to say that there's a blessing in a pandemic, but that's
Yeah,
one, like it forced a lot of states
Hmm.
to rethink the way that they wanted to allow access to this process,
yeah,
right? Like it couldn't just be crowds of people on election day because that reeked of unsafe, right? And so now states had to be like, all right, well, we want people to vote, so we got to figure something else out. And so they had to, like, they were forced to rethink the process for it. And so hopefully, you know, again, I definitely don't, I hesitate to say blessing in a pandemic, but I think that that's one of the hidden things in this moment that it gives you an opportunity to have that conversation around, do we actually have the best system that allows most people access to this process? And I think that that's something that we can advocate for going forward. But what I was going to say before you dropped off, Chris, is we're talking about you going out there Saturday. Like, do you have like your first voting day fit? Like, you going to be out there like super fresh at the polls? Like, are you turning up on them on Saturday? Like, what you doing?
Man, listen, yeah, suited and booted. All right, I like to wear suits and with t-shirts and tennis shoes. That's my vibe. I'm definitely gonna go out and with a blazer or something like that on. I think we're kind of gonna recap my experience and stuff like that. I'm interested to know how it goes. I'm gonna go to early voting Saturday, and it, I'm gonna jump fresh because I'm excited.
Yeah.
But is that something you jump fresh for? Like, I don't know. Like,
But
how am I supposed
listen,
to dress to go vote?
this is something Blue was talking about earlier, man. We have to change kind of the cultural lens around which we approach. Like, listen, man,
Absolutely.
you know how we do, right? I got a freshness only t-shirt on right now. Shout out to my man. He ain't paying me for this.
Black owned business. Black owned
Shout out to my
business.
man with the produce section.
Hmm.
But like that's a part of our culture is to like be fresh. Like first day of school, you're gonna be
I like
fresh.
that.
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
When you go out to any other major event, you're gonna be fresh. Why can't we make an event of voting, right? Like why can't we take civic responsibility and it's like we gotta put some sauce on everything. Like why have we been
Right.
waiting so long to throw sauce on this? Like let's make this an event, bro. Like I'm all for that. I'm all for people stepping out as ghetto fabulous as they want to be. And I don't care, bro. Be out there in some gator boots, and I don't care. Like just make it a thing, man. Like because I
Right.
think that that's an opportunity for us to connect to a generation that has like social media. Like I just posted something on the Woke Vote Instagram. If you go to the Instagram page. I just posted it in the stories. The Say It With a Selfie campaign, right? Like when you out there,
Mm.
like throw your selfie up, like let us get a picture of you with your vote. Like let people know you're excited about this moment and you came fresh to that occasion, right? Like
Right.
like, I think we should start doing that, bro. Like that's a cultural that's a paradigm shift for our culture, right? Making it
Right.
an event. So I want you to make it whatever you want it to be. So like, hey, if you're gonna be
Say
fresh,
less.
yeah,
I just needed the word, bro.
yeah.
Say less. Yeah. So
So
no.
so saying all that to say, yeah, we got people that's gonna be out there with Chris documenting that. We'll be going live through that process with him. Blue, if you want us to get somebody out there with you to document it, you know what I'm saying? Like we could do that too. Like I really want people to start embracing these moments as like because I don't when talking about first time voting experiences, I don't really remember much about the first time I voted. Like I went and I did it. I do remember this. I was super nervous the first time I went because I had no idea what to expect and I didn't go prepared, meaning like I hadn't researched my ballot. And then when I looked at the ballot for the first time, there was like all these options, and I was like, I don't even know who all these people are, so I didn't know like who to pick for certain stuff.
Right,
And so I
right.
was just completely out of my depth. And it almost made me be like, I don't want to do this again because I felt stupid, right? And I don't like feeling dumb. And that I think that's a big issue for our community too. We don't like feeling dumb, right? I don't want to feel dumb in nothing I do. So because I don't know, I ain't gonna deal with it,
Right.
right? And you talked about Blue. I want to let you jump back in here. You talked about like that feeling of embarrassment for like feeling like you should be doing this thing, but you can't, right? So you didn't talk about it. It was that level of embarrassment just because you were around, you said you grew up in a family that was all about politics and you were like, was that the embarrassment? It was like, I'm around all these
Mm,
civically minded people, but I'm not even involved civically.
Well,
right.
most of them are just people, my frat brothers, all the friends I have, on Facebook are pretty much professionals, young professionals, mid-age professionals, and so everybody votes, and so it's been a big deal to them, and so I'm real family oriented. So I post. I got a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
They're animated, and so I post, things that go with them, and so I have no problem with posting other things. But just whenever it came to voting, it was like that day you can all probably go back in my Facebook feed and just not see any posts about
Right.
anything pertaining voting. One year I even said, man, I'm just gonna get me a sticker and just put,
You
I was gonna,
voted.
I wonder how often that happens, how often people are flexing with fake stickers out there, but
I mean, it is, and like I said, I don't like, I, I don't lie. So, for me to do that and just know I'm just, not only am I lying to myself, but I'm really fronting. So I didn't ever do that. I just kind of, stayed away. My wife voted, she never really just kind of rubbed it in my face or even
oh,
asked me.
I didn't even ask you about that. Like, with the being married situation, like she's able to cash a ballot in. Like, that's crazy, man. Yeah.
So when we went this first time, we went together,
Dope, dope.
we went together as a couple of votes. So we'll do the same thing this time. And like I said, I'm so tempted to go out and vote early, but I really want that November 3rd ambiance, man. I got,
Right.
and I'm in an area, like I said, that's red. Man, when I went to vote last time, it was funny because I didn't know the process, and so the lady was like, "I need a Democrat ballot," and I
Right,
was
right.
supposed to say that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not
Yeah.
a but you just, you know, is that what they do?
So so typically, here's the thing about voter intimidation, right? Like that's a very subtle voter intimidation tactic, number one. Number two, probably because the area that you're in, they didn't expect a lot of Democratic voters to show up, so
Mm,
they might not even have had them. But just to make sure everybody who knows, this might be your first time voting in a general election. The general election, they should not be asking you what party you are voting for. That only happens in the primaries because the primary voting process is you're voting for people in your whichever party you've declared, right? If you declared for a party during the primary, they need a ballot that's specifically for your side of that primary, right?
Okay.
General election, everybody's on there, so they should not be asking you. If someone asks you what party you're voting for at the general election, they should not be doing that, right? So
right.
that should not happen when you go out there November 3rd because that's an irrelevant question. Everybody's on the same ballot, right? Doesn't matter. It's the general.
Okay.
So you shouldn't expect that. But that's another part of like I think the intimidation or the fear factor that goes in with people is like not knowing what to expect. And if your first time voting is in a primary, that's a jarring thing for somebody to be like, okay, so which ballot do you want? And you like, wait, hold up. You supposed to ask me that? Like,
Yeah.
I thought I get to tell you, like, I don't get to just pick one and just go. But no,
Right.
you have to formally declare which party it is that you want to be in for the
I think the
primary.
only reason I ain't saying that because it was in the church, and so we'd have been in the gym or school. I'd have been like, I probably said something. I mean, she literally like yelled it, like leaned back and was like, I was like, man. So,
Yeah.
but she was
Nah.
actually, I won't sit up in front. She was doing everybody ballot like that. But I mean, it just, of course, I'm gonna think differently because I've never
Yeah.
experienced that. So yeah, man, it was. I'm like, hey, they can yell it all they want to. I'm glad that I've been finding out that you can't wear political parties shirts, and like I said, I want to wear my Black Lives Matter T-shirt, but the ignorance of the rules might cause a commotion to where I can't vote because Black Lives Matter shirt is like,
Mm.
and so but many people think it's a political party who
Yeah.
just. So I
So
don't.
be clear, if you want to wear a Black Lives Matter shirt to the poll, that is within the rules. There's nothing
Oh
that
yeah,
says that you
absolutely.
can't do that.
Yeah.
But I understand your situation of like not like being where you're going to go vote, not wanting to cause any commotions or whatever.
I'm with all the smoke, man. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think one of the things is I'm an angry black man. You know,
Okay.
because of all the foolishness, the disrespect to black women, how they handle us, and it's just it makes me frustrated. So this is
Mhm.
my way without putting somebody in the trunk of expressing or releasing my anger. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I don't want where I am. I mean, at the end of my street, it's a vote straight this sign, and it seemed like one person put up one party and 30 people put up the other one, just like competition. So I know it's gonna be that element there.
Oh yeah. That so other things so things that first time voters, especially down here. Now, say I don't know how they do it up north, Val, but like when you go to the polling locations here, especially if you are in a place that has a lot of, you're gonna experience this downtown, Chris. I don't know if you're gonna
Okay.
get it on early voting, but if you went on election day, you 100% would. They'll be out there with the sample ballots, right? So like as you're walking up, they'll be handing you a sample ballot, basically like telling you this is who you should vote for. This is how you should fill your ballot out, right?
Mm.
They do that all the time, like especially like that's just been a strategy for a long time in certain places. Again, Val, I don't know if they do that up in New Jersey where they like hand you a sample ballot as you walking in, trying to tell you this is how you supposed to vote. But like it's basically a pre-filled thing in case you don't. And what that is a callback to is there were a lot of ignorant, African Americans going to vote for the first time, and they didn't know how to fill out a ballot properly. So they had a group of people so that you couldn't be misled when you walked into the polling location that were designated to hand people a ballot and be like, look, all you got to do is copy this, right? And so they give you a sample ballot, and it would tell you which lines to bubble and how to bubble, and you could walk out of there, be out really quickly, right? I think
Mm.
there's something wrong with Val's connection. He keeps dropping in and out. But that might be something that you encounter, and that is a thing that some people get intimidated by, or even annoyed by. It's just like, man, get out of my own. And like people trying to hand you literature as you are first walking out there to the polling location or whatever. They're trying to hand you stuff as you getting in there. Like that can get annoying. So like, that's something that you have to. So if you're a first time voter out there, be on the lookout for those types of things. I don't know when you went to the primaries, did you experience that, Blue, when you went out there?
Nah, just it
See,
was
that's
pretty. It was cool.
that's because of where you vote.
Right.
If you were in like within the city of Birmingham, I guarantee you that you would have experienced that.
Mm.
That's just because you
I've
had.
seen it. I've seen it because, like I said, I grew up in politics. I grew up
Oh yeah,
around.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
Uh,
you said you
I
worked for
worked,
somebody who was a yeah.
right. I worked for a friend. Well, I helped a friend of mine when they were running for judge, just riding around making sure those people who hand out the sample ballots had lunch and all that. And I did that for like
Mm-hmm.
12 hours, and then went and paid them. So like I said, I've been around it, and it's. I mean, it can get very
Contentious. That's the word you're probably
yeah,
looking for.
yeah, because they're supposed to come in within a certain amount of feet
Right.
from the actual polling place. And if you go to one of those big big box places like Legion Field, man, it's like I
A
mean, it's
circus.
yes, sir, yeah. And so, like I said, man, I just I remember, I was a firefighter when Barack Obama was elected the first time, and they voted at the fire station we were at, and man, I saw the line all the way out to the street, and this in Bessemer, and so I was just like, man, these people here to vote,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I just don't want people to be deterred. I wish more young people would volunteer to be poll workers, because when I used to go get a poll count, I used to have to wrestle with the old ladies who didn't know that you had a right to get the poll numbers. And I mean, it was just, it's just people been there for a long time.
Right.
So I think more of us, people like Valentine, y'all need to be poll workers, man. You'll change the fabric of voting, I believe, just by doing that. So
That's a good. That's good. It's something I hadn't really ever thought about. But like, yeah, some people, that's what they do. Elections come around, they gonna be a poll worker. Like they gonna be there every single time. Especially if you're in some of those smaller towns, like it's the same,
Right.
little old lady standing there handing that lady that was like, I need a Democrat. That she probably been doing that for
years.
eight election cycles, right? The same way every single time, like, and she ain't thought nothing else about it. But again, if that's your first time, that's a jarring experience because you not expecting that, right? That'll throw somebody
Right.
off, and they'll be like, "Hold on now, we ain't. Is that how it's supposed to go down?" So it'll feel very intimidating to do that sort of thing, and it might deter people from deciding, I don't want to go through that no more, so I'm not coming back to do this, or especially like if you live in an area where you aren't the majority of what people are doing, and so it's like I don't really want to show up and vote there.
But see, honestly, I think because this is the general presidential election and you don't have a lot of people on the ballot for local elections, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot of those local people paying the poll, the people who stand there to pass out the sample ballot. So it might not be that bad this year because, I
It
mean,
won't.
it's
Yeah.
almost self-explanatory. You either want slavery or you want freedom. Because that's
Listen. Yeah, nah, but it definitely is not going to be the same sort of contention because there isn't that, like, man, look, so as heated as you feel like people get around this presidential debate situation, you have not seen heated until you have been a part of a local election, because those are people who live across the street from you, and
man.
they feel differently than you, and y'all got to show it. Like, it gets real like ugly with these local elections sometimes. What were you gonna say, Chris?
Oh no, that's how serious I take it. Like you either want slavery or freedom.
Right.
That was one of the biggest things that made me want to go ahead and get up and go ahead and vote. And just going back to what you were saying, like I said, I'm a public figure, man, and like a lot of people look up to me. And I've told people to go vote before. I've promoted voting, what I'm saying, as long as I can. But I've never been a person to actually go stand in that line and vote. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's very important to kind of use your platform to just do the right thing. Where I am now, I realize like even if I post something on Facebook, if somebody don't agree with it, I got 2 or 3 people like in my inbox, like they're really watching like how you carrying yourself, what are you doing, are you using your influence for good instead of bad? And I just think, especially people like me, who are like in the colleges, who are in the urban scene and places like that, but in high positions, I think it's very important for us just to lead the wave. We gotta lead the wave. I think I know for a fact, all of my students at UAB that I teach and all of my students from Miles, when they see me do stuff, they want to do it too. You know, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to go ahead and do it. Besides the fact that I'm scared as hell, because literally, bro, like, what is about to happen?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
what is
but see
about to
that's
happen?
but see this is why this conversation is important, man. Because I think people aren't willing to acknowledge that there is a level of fear around the process, right? Like you
Absolutely.
are just, you got to kind of sidestep that with being able to do the mail-in ballot there, Val. You ain't have to like actually walk up on nobody's polling location, but like there's anxiety around it. Again, I told you when I went to vote the first time, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. I was just going because that's what we're supposed to do. It's election day. You get up and you go vote because that's what my mom and dad did on election day. They voted, so it's like boom. All right, it's your turn. You're gonna go vote, and I went and I voted, and I had
That's
no
what's
clue what
up.
I was doing. But but again, that moment of ignorance in that moment of ignorance, I was like, I will never come in here unprepared like this again. Never. I will never walk back in here unprepared like this again. And so like I started trying to figure like I started paying attention more and more to debate. Speaking of debates, the second presidential debate that's happening in
Mm-hmm.
about 30 minutes, right? Like so
Mm-hmm.
I started paying attention to the debates. I started looking at who was running for stuff. And I realized crazy like we grew up in Forestdale, so you're not from down here. Forestdale is a little community that's outside of Birmingham here, but it's part of what we call unincorporated Jefferson County, right? So like though Forestdale residents, our address is Birmingham, we were never allowed to vote in Birmingham city elections. And as an older person who now has a mortgage in a city, and I'm looking
Right.
at where my taxes go, and I'm looking at like where the freaking water bill is coming from, the gas bill is coming from, and I'm seeing who I'm paying money to, and I was like, why in the world did are Forestdale residents not allowed to vote in elections for people that impact how their taxes? I was like, that's the craziest thing. That blew my mind when I got old enough to
Mm-hmm.
start paying bills for real. I was like, no, boy, y'all, somebody need to change this because this don't make no sense. And I don't know, maybe there's a reason out there. I still need to do some research on that. But again, when I bought my first home, I started thinking about stuff like that. And again, as you transition into new phases in your life, you start to put different aspects of how all of this stuff ties together. And I'm like, okay, I really am starting to see the picture now of like just how much this stuff impacts things. But going back to it, that fear is real. Like it's a real thing. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up here in just a second. So, question for you, Val. So you said that your first presidential election was this one that you have you ever like actually gone to a polling location when you did that in the
Oh
primaries? Did
yeah,
you?
yeah. So so after the whole Obama and everything like that, I did vote in like the local elections, and
Oh yeah, you told
so
me at the local
yeah.
ones. Yeah, yeah.
So one thing is like I don't want to say ironic, but like my parents have always like they voted. I've seen my parents vote every election since they
Right.
because my parents are immigrants, so came from Nigeria, moved to America, all of this. So when they became citizens, like they took it very seriously. In Jersey, Willingboro, the town that we grew up in, what they do, they always send like the sample ballot to the house, so you kind of like know exactly what the ballot's going to look
Mm-hmm.
like when you go into the polling place. So a couple times I've walked in there like when we were younger, just like walking in with my parents because they would pick us up from school, and it was literally at the school I went to. They would just go to the cafeteria and vote. So just seeing that whole atmosphere at a point, when I was younger, it was a bit intimidating because like what's going on here, like what's going on behind the little curtain, things like that. Just curiosity. The first time I was actually able to go in there, I did the whole process. I was like, it was more so. It was just more so like because I didn't do any research. I didn't know who I was voting for, like
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, Republicans, or anything like that. It was more like my parents were like, "Oh, just vote for this person," because
Right.
they actually lived in the town, and I was up at Penn State. So it was just like, all right, well, I guess if you're telling me to do it, it must be right. So it wasn't until I wasn't until after Trump got elected the first time that actually now I'm like paying attention to like the congressional, like who's running for Congress in my town, like who's running for councilman, like even me finding out that Cory Booker, like that was someone that I voted in, things like that. Just it was like, hey, like you're doing your due diligence prior to going to elections, and kind of like what I said earlier, you might not agree with everything, but you do have to like understand what they're doing for your agenda. Like not everyone might have your specific agenda in mind, but we have to think as a collective. We have to think as a whole, and just being more informed. So that for me, that was kind of like my biggest thing.
Dope, dope, dope. All right, I want to get you a last word in here, Blue. Like, we kind of touched on this a little earlier. Maybe somebody tuned in a little later. Like, what are your words to someone who is maybe sitting there right now? Maybe they're registered, maybe they're not registered. Maybe they want to be registered to vote, but they can't. Like, what kind of words do you want to give to them about like this whole civic duty responsibility that you can say to folks that are doing this?
I just say I just look at it as a privilege, not one given to me by America, but the one that was earned by the people that came before me, that they sacrificed. Since we say we're not our ancestors and we won't
Mm,
take well, let's respect them because they did in order that we can have the attitude that many of us hold today.
Hmm.
And so I just say vote, man. Like you gotta think, he called it Val, right?
Yeah.
He said I didn't vote, and he know his one vote, but when you got 400,000 views in Pleasant Grove this year, um, literally
Mm-hmm.
the difference between the first black mayor was four votes. It's 4 or 14. Either one. I know 14 people sat at the house, and
So
then
close.
they could
Mm-hmm.
have. And that was the difference between the first black mayor in that city. And so, when you start looking at stuff like that, if a bunch of people have the same mindset, then yes, it does create a problem. Um, and just, I mean, if you don't want to wait, if you want to vote and you don't want to vote for, like you said, one of the lesser evils, then start something now. Create momentum. November 5th, whatever inauguration day, create momentum then. So by the time that we get there, we've made enough noise, because don't nobody like last minute noise only creates confusion.
Mm.
And so I just say, man, I'm take advantage of your right. I mean, if I'm gonna pay taxes, I'm gonna vote.
Listen. So I
So
need to. Somebody got to tell me something about where my money going, and I
yeah,
need to know
Okay.
that I had some sort of say in the person that gets to have the decision, because I don't
and,
get
and
to
that's
directly decide that.
that's essentially, a lot of people don't understand how much congressmen and senators make. They make insane. Well, I think the lowest is like 180 a year, and after so many years, you get permanent benefits for the rest of your life. So that means
Right.
that when you don't give people stimulus, you still getting your stimulus from me, because you get
Period.
yours first, and you get yours after I done paid taxes on it when I buy something.
Correct.
It's like that's how you paying for these people's look,
Very true.
and millionaire statuses. So why not put some people in there who at least lie and say they'll do something for,
Right.
Right.
trick me.
Listen. Let's say lie to me, lie to me, bro. I need you to at least make me feel good
Yeah,
about the situation. Like, even if
Right.
you gonna get in there and tell your draws, like, I need to know at some point in time you came by and visited me
right.
before
Right.
you went over there. So, but yeah, I feel that. All right, I'm gonna let you get the last word here, Dr. Fluent. What do you want to say to the people? Listen, it's your first time. You are the only one here who has never cast a ballot. So let's talk about, give you that last word on this.
I'm super excited. First, I want to say that I know I've neglected my responsibilities up until this point. I'm 27. I should have voted by now. I know that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna turn a new leaf and take that responsibility and make sure I do what I got to do this time. And I hope that my peers kind of follow suit as well. I'm huge on social media, so I get it. Like, we got a debate tonight. Social media is going to go crazy. We don't know if this is a presidential election or entertainment night show. We don't know. And I think that kind of saturates the mission, if that makes sense, because we're going to be on Facebook, Twitter, live tweeting, like, laughing at the debates. But instead of laughing, like, we might want to take it a little more serious. That's the only thing, that I'm worried about. So I challenge my peers to just, instead of looking at the debate tonight to see, what Trump is going to say next, or, what Biden's going to say next, or something like that. Let's really dive into the content of what they're speaking on, and how that's really going to help our people. Because at the end of the day, you vote people in office to work for you, to make the
Right.
changes and do the things that you need them to do so you can have a better life. It's all about equality. Our history with this country can never be unwritten. Can never be unwritten. I feel like this has been an ongoing fight. I've been hearing about this type of stuff since I was little, all the way in school. And not for yourself, do it for that. I challenge all my peers to just be bigger than yourself. I think, February, I'll be 28. And I don't know what it is. I got a friend in LA who's he'll be 28 at the end of the month. And we had the biggest breakdowns this year, like February and March, because, like, we almost 30. Like, we almost 30. I don't have a house. I'm not at the age yet when I've invested in a house, or, those long-term things. But although I don't have that stuff, it's very important that I still take the election seriously.
For sure.
And I think that's the biggest thing with some of my peers. I don't see how it directly affects them. And I want to just tell everybody, hey, even if you don't think it directly affects you, know that it affects our community. And that should be enough. Our history should be enough to say, hey, we don't, and at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen with the election. You know what I'm saying? This early voting stuff going on. Everybody's going to be at the poll. Now that you tell me that, I'm going to go vote Saturday, but I'm going to be back out there on election day and covering and interviewing and talking to people about their experiences as well, because you're right. It's something that we should be educated on. You know, shame on me for neglecting that too. You know what I'm saying? But there's so many other people out there just like me in these notable places, in these high positions, young and lit, and we are absolutely not doing anything to help our people. And I think this is the first step in taking on that responsibility. Like, to hear these two guys talk, I gotta go vote, bro. Like, I don't want my brothers out there by themselves voting. Like, we need to go out there and vote as well. I'm gonna follow suit. So I just challenge all my peers to do the same thing, man. It's very important. And to research. I
Yeah.
spend it today and tomorrow researching for sure.
Dope, dope. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you all taking a little bit of your night and getting out here and talking to folks. And hopefully, you know, as we start to get this video start circulating, somebody will hear or see something that motivates them to kind of understand their responsibility and take it a little bit more seriously. But, you know, I appreciate the transparency that all of you have displayed tonight and just sharing your stories. And again, I hopefully that encourages somebody else who has similar stories to kind of hold on to that and take that next step to start getting civically engaged. So I appreciate it, guys.
No doubt.
Thanks for the
Appreciate you
conversation,
having
man.
me, man.
All right, all right. Listen, before I let everybody get up out of here, once again, this has been a wonderful conversation we've had tonight. I want to encourage you all, vote.vote.us. You see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. You all can go out right now and see what's going to be on your ballot, see where your polling location is going to be. All of that information is available to you right now on the website. So go there and do that. If you've already been registered, just make a commitment to vote. I want to get as many people saying, yes, you know what, I'm going to make the commitment to do my civic duty and get out here and vote. All right, if you're not following us already, Woke Vote is on Instagram at Woke Vote. We're on Twitter at Woke Vote US. Make sure you stay connected with the movement. We're going to continue to bring you content and information about how you can do your civic duty. I appreciate y'all very much. Y'all have a wonderful